Barbie has been an essential part of American culture since her creation in 1959 by Ruth Handler. However, her influence has been a topic of controversial debate, mainly because of the narrow ideas of gender she perpetuates, and the effects that this has on young women and the children that she's marketed at. Judith Butler argues that gender is performative. Gender proves to be performative. This is constituting the identity it is purported to be. In this sense, gender is always doing, although not a doing by a subject who might be said to pre-exist the deed. Barbie is part of this doing, as she produces and reproduces aesthetic ideas that construct the female gender and perpetuate a cultural understanding of femininity. This is particularly reflective in the cultural phenomenon of Barbie, as she is a toy doll, thus completely lacking in an internal identity, however remains an ideal icon of the female gender and relies on her reproducing of aesthetic concepts for its longevity as a business model. Indeed, her influence is evident in her financial success, making over $1 billion annually by 1993. Barbie's performativity began with her as a post-war Western image of femininity, reconsolidating the specific roles within the gender binary that had been distorted and abstracted by women occupying masculine roles during the Second World War. Judith Butler suggests that these limits are always set within the terms of hegemonic cultural discourse, predicated on binary structures that appear as the language of universal rationality. In this sense, Barbie is directly a product of the hegemonic patriarchal capitalist structures that exist and benefit from regulating the performative gender binary to a certain aesthetic, that is Barbie, that have previously been displaced. These ideas can also be read through Roland Barthes' Mythologies. We reach here the very principle of myth. It transforms history into nature. This suggests that the hegemonic ideology around gender perpetuated by cultural myths like Barbie appear to be naturalized into society, such as the association with girls with pink. The naturalization has also naturalized the perceptions of gender as a binary through performativity. These ideas are produced and reproduced to the point that young women simulate such performativity or even try to become abstract icons of gender, like Barbie, despite her impossible physical proportions, such as Valeria Lukyanova, who is considered to be the human Barbie.
Кукла говорите? Да. Весьма похоже. Мне нравится это сравнение. Прекрасно быть похожей на куклу.
Butler also explores the relationship between sex and gender, and suggests that bodies cannot be said to have signifiable existence before the mark of their gender, which is reflected in the way that Barbie's identity is tied up so closely with her physicality. In 1963, Matter released Midge to counteract criticism that Barbie was a sex icon. However, more controversy occurred as Midge was released as a pregnant doll, which suggests the female body can only be read through limitations that gender inflicts on it, as either a sex icon or a mother figure. The inspiration for Barbie was Build Lily, a German doll for men that was designed to be a three-dimensional pop-up girl that Mattel later bought the rights to and transformed into Barbie, which reiterates Butler's idea of cultural associations of the mind with masculinity and the body with femininity, as Barbie has her roots in physical sexuality. The Ken doll was introduced in 1961, as it became understood that Barbie needed a male counterpart to be culturally accepted. Butler suggests the heterosexualization of desire requires and institutes the production of discrete and asymmetrical opposites between the feminine and the masculine, where these are understood as expressive attributes of male and female. In this sense, Butler suggests that heterosexuality is also an essential part of the performativity of gender and the cultural narrative we understand to grow from it. The creation of Ken works to highlight what Barbie is not. Despite her plethora of careers, she still remains essentially feminine in contrast to her male partner, and despite the inclusion of a male doll in the Barbie Corporation, Barbie is still marketed directly at young women, highlighting the separation of male and female gender spheres. This reiterates Butler's argument that the subjects regulated by such structures are by virtue of being subjected to them formed, defined, and reproduced in accordance with the requirements of these structures, which is reflected in the way that Barbie's movement into the public sphere only extends to what is culturally accepted as within the domain of gender binary. Barbie is thus a perfect example of Butler's theory on the performativity of gender, as she is almost defined entirely by her aesthetic of her gender, and is lacking in any other form of identity, yet still consolidates what it means to be female through ideas such as beauty, materialism, and heteronormativity. I'm a blonde girl.